All right. Thank you for chatting. Did you have a good weekend?
It was a weekend.
It was a weekend. It was a break.
Yes.
Good. Awesome. Thank you for letting me be in your room with Hilda on Friday. I enjoyed being in there, and I felt like I was really impressed. Like I know you already graded these exit tickets, and I've already sort of previewed them, and it's clear that the work you all are doing with Night is working, because kids are like, I felt like they were all, with the exception of Pamela, like had the right answers. It's just that they weren't necessarily meeting all aspects of the criteria for success. What are you thinking?
I think the same thing. I tried to, with Pamela, kind of guide her in terms of like, what is the question asking? And is your response echoing that? So I think she ended up like crossing out a whole bunch of stuff and trying again.
She wrote a lot, which I know sounds like a silly thing, but a lot of the kids who I know are lower level in your class, like didn't actually produce a ton of writing, but like she produced a lot, and she pulled details. They just weren't necessarily perfectly connected to answering the question.
Right.
You're like, I know so well what that looks like. Okay, cool. So we're going to go through sort of our weekly data meeting. First thing we're going to talk about quickly is something that we talked about our last lesson internalization meeting, which is just like the breakdown of the standards. So just to have it in front of us, we're looking at RL 8.1. Students need to be able to analyze, identify explicit textual evidence, cite evidence, draw inferences, support the inferences using several pieces of evidence from the text, and provide varying degrees of support or evidence. So that's sort of our baseline for what we're looking for today. Although there were 3 standards focused on during this lesson, I felt like for their exit ticket, what they were really being asked to do was make an inference.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. So next, we're going to go through the exemplar we have, and I have an extra copy of it here, and then identify a student exemplar. So let's look through it really quickly and read through it independently and figure out what exactly kids needed to be able to do to get to this. What'd you come up with?
Okay, so they have to be able to first and foremost answer the main question and the hidden question that's within the prompt. Then they have to find evidence and analysis.
That's what I had. I don't know this language as well, and I should. When you say hidden question, what do you guys mean by that?
So
exactly?
The prompt was, what question does Wazell ask himself while he is at the gala? So the main question is the question that he is asking himself. Then it's like, what does the question reveal about his internal conflict? So that the reveal is part of the main question, but the hidden question is asking, well, what is his internal conflict?
Yeah.
Like, so the student will have to mention what the internal conflict
okay,
was.
I have it without knowing what a hidden question is. Yes. Okay, because I just wrote, they have to be able to answer the primary question. They have to be able to identify the internal conflict. One thing that Tennille and I were randomly talking about this morning too is that like the strongest answers also gave like the why. It's one thing to name the internal conflict, but a lot of the kids surprisingly didn't actually make the connection between what the internal conflict is and like the why behind it, so that like the reason he's questioning religion and God is because he's witnessing these like horrific acts, and they actually didn't name that, which was interesting. So while I don't necessarily think that would like, prevent a kid from mastery of this standard, I think that the strongest answers included that why, and then details from the text and
So
analysis.
if a student included that why, that would be in their analysis.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I thought.
If they pick the correct intelligence.
Right.
Okay, got it.
Right. Okay, cool. And then I don't know. I actually picked out. Well, I picked out Maya's as the. In my mind, her response was the exemplar student response that included everything. So if you want to pull hers and read over it really quickly and just sort of note what she did that made hers, whether she met this criteria we discussed, and whether you agree that it was an exemplar. She's got tiny little handwriting.
I don't know.
You know all about it probably.
But it's legible.
Hamza's was so strong. I just saw you pass Hamza's. His was like beautiful, except he didn't finish. Because I was really impressed with his, and then I was like,
yeah, I said, you know, I believe you could have given more information if you focused a little bit better.
Right.
So,
right. That story of his life, maybe a little bit. Yeah.
All right. So I have mine. So, yes, she answered all questions. One thing that I noticed with her language wasn't specific. I feel like she kept saying, the boy hanging there trying to stay alive, but he being God, isn't doing anything to stop it. Stop
yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Or isn't doing anything. What do you mean by anything?
Yeah, I agree that I think like she met the general criteria up at the top, and she had the strongest rationale. I agree that her writing is not super clear, so I think your score is accurate. I think that she met the general criteria best out of anyone. Unless did you think there was anybody stronger in the pile?
No, I feel like our strong people all got the same thing because of the grading.
Okay.
That I did.
Awesome. No, that sounds good. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, the few things that I noticed that she did is she provided specific textual evidence, which is one thing, and she provided justification. Based on this, one can conclude that Ellie is losing hope in God and feels like God is dead. She also did give that why. Although it was vaguely written, she talked about the boy hanging there, trying to stay alive, as like evidence that no one's intervening.
And I feel like she was the only one that really did answer the why. I don't think. And there might have been one other. I think maybe Luis. Like they said, he feels like, where is God? That God might be dead because something is not being done about this. So I think it was Maya and one other.
I think it was Luis too. Actually, we'll look through the all student work in just a minute, but. It was the strongest. That's why I thought hers was the strongest. Although you're right, like her clarity in writing is not perfect, and she was vague in spaces. I felt like she named the internal conflict, she named the why, and she had supporting evidence and context. Cool. So let's go through the work. You can go through your papers. I'll go through mine. And I think the big thing that we're going to try and do now is just name the gap. So we're trying to figure out, okay, if Maya is our exemplar, what are other people missing? And why are they missing it? And try and come up with some trends there. So we're going to take about 5 minutes on the clock. So it's not going to be perfect, but just a general, let's go through quickly and figure out where these big gaps are. Does Davon write, please excuse my sloppy handwriting on everything? Does OT teach him that?
No, he does like to write note stuff.
That's so funny. I actually thought Andy had a really strong response too. His language gets a little informal, but I was impressed with his, he also alluded to the why.
Right. I felt like his thoughts were a little bit unorganized. Like,
Yeah,
I felt like he was hopping
for sure.
around everywhere. So
No,
I was just like,
absolutely.
jot it down first.
Right, like process this in your mind. That's good to know that. I don't mean to like interrupt our thinking, but it might just help for us to kind of briefly go through this together since we both looked at them already. I'll kind of tell you where my head is. Like I have a group of kids who I think like got the right answer, had supporting evidence, might have been missing the why. And then I have a stack of kids that seem like,
They didn't finish.
well, they either, do you think this is a not finish?
That's definitely not. They had 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. That's super helpful context because I was actually going to use him in my, as I was thinking about reteaching and planning, and I was going to use him, but if he didn't finish, then that's...
Now, he should have been able to...
Because in my mind, he has a really strong claim. I was just like, oh, he didn't support it with evidence, but you think it was not finished?
The claim is fine.
Right.
But within the 10 minutes, he was supposed to also list 2 pieces of evidence with 2 analysis along with that claim.
Delightful. I thought he, okay. This is why we do this together. Because in my like isolated thought, I was thinking like he just didn't know to pull evidence. Cool. Okay, let's keep going. So I put Luis Xavier and Andy Sanchez and Cassandra all in this like pile of like, got it. I could have given a little more why, but I'm generally there. And I put Devon in like a generally have the right claim, but not enough evidence or analysis.
Okay.
Us two, questioning God, names internal conflict. She only has one piece of evidence, so I put her, I guess, somewhere over here. The wind blowing. Angeline. What did you do? Where would you put her? This is just really good context.
So I don't think she went into the why.
Yeah, she didn't go into the why as much. I would put her generally though, like 2 supporting pieces of details. Yeah. Fidel 2, I put him. I think I'm doing this in order where I already sorted it, so I think I already have them all.
So he answered. He answered the question.
Yeah.
So I think he went the route, he didn't say why, but he went the route like, hey, let me show you how he's losing his field.
Yeah. I think he falls into this general gotta category, but could have gone more into why. I'm going to skip over a few kids just because for the sake of time, I don't want to spend the entire time on this. But so if we move down to Chastity, we still ask himself, where's God? Well, at the gallows, this reveals that he's losing faith in God, accepting all realities. I mean, this one to me falls into like you only put one piece of evidence.
Michael, see, I feel like Michael is in his own category because he tried to, he answered the question, but he doesn't put evidence. He kind of gives a context of, hey, this is kind of what happened.
So is that a pattern with him?
A little bit, but he also during this time had a, what do you call it? He just came back from speech. So
Okay.
he was a few minutes late, so he didn't have the whole 10 minutes. Same thing with Kaden.
Okay. That's helpful.
So they had probably about like 6-7 minutes to do it, but should have more than what was written.
Yeah. Dead. I mean, once again, I would say he's right. He just didn't provide evidence.
Right.
Yeah, no evidence. Seems like a little trend. Edward, I found the same thing. I thought,
Yeah, also thought it was interesting that he was the only one that used crazy.
Just as a language choice, so that was interesting.
Yeah, because it's like I get it why it might be.
Yeah.
Why he's going crazy, but it doesn't say that in the text.
Yeah.
Or allude to it.
No. No, you're right, but it's like not a wrong inference, but. Well,
yeah, like I see where he's coming from.
It's almost like applying too much of his own perspective, right? Like, if I were in this situation, I would be going crazy. Therefore, we sell it. Okay. Pamela, I'm gonna just put her right here. Okay, we're past our 5 minutes. These were some of the cuspy kids that I thought sort of were on the right track but off. So when we think about the difference between Maya's work and the work over here, what is this work missing, or what do we think? Where were the key misconceptions?
This work is missing evidence.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty clear cut, and like this, as we look at more and more student work throughout the year, like I feel like this is a little bit of a procedural issue. I don't think like these kids don't know how to find evidence necessarily, but they're either not making the connection between finding evidence, or I think we need to dig in more. I don't think this meeting in and of itself is going to answer all of our questions about why these kids are consistently not including evidence. Mm-hmm. Is it something you're noticing? I just said consistently, but is it something you're noticing that's happening consistently?
With some of the people in this pod, yes.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So I think now that we've identified, like, okay, so you tell me, what is the key misunderstanding, or what is the key issue, the gap between Maya's work and the work of the students who did not match the sex ticket?
Adding evidence.
Excellent. And even more specifically, we could say adding evidence that connects the claim, right? That supports the claim. Awesome. Okay, so we need a reteach plan. It's sort of an interesting number. You have almost a 50-50 split of kids who like mostly got it. At some point we're going to need to be pushing on them on their writing clarity, but I think you're going to be able to address that more with your Baldwin work necessarily than through your Wheatley work. It's just my thought.
It's weird because with Baldwin they're looking at it from the aspect of a writer, but with Wheatley they're literally reading.
Yeah.
And they're already getting confused between the two, so I don't know if Baldwin at this point will help us.
Will be the vehicle. Okay. Alright, that's something for us to table, I think. So there are two options for reteach. We can do modeling, or we can do guided discourse, or like a show call. What are you thinking?
I feel like in the class we already do a lot of modeling. We do some kind of model almost every day, unless it's a second time close read or independent reading.
Yeah.
And kids are jotting down, they're taking notes, so maybe the second option might be best because they may not know how it looks.
Yeah, I actually thought guided discourse as well, because you have so many kids here who already have it, you have enough to kind of build off of. My thinking, I think you could still use it because it still highlights it. I felt like you could show, I'm actually going to model for you if that's cool, what I think I would do for the guided discourse. And the way I would do this is before your next exit ticket, that requires kids to use evidence to support, which I think lesson 18, which you're doing on Wednesday, is requiring kids to write an exit ticket. Yeah. So I think if you and Hilda can sync up, and before on Wednesday, I know it's already a shortened block, so it's a little squeezed, but I don't think this should take more than 3 minutes. So what I would do is, I would take Maya's work, I'm going to make you do this afterwards.
Okay.
So get excited. I would take Maya's work on the board, I would take Yvonne's work on the board, I would have them both on the smart board, and I would say, great news, when grading exit ticket from Friday, all of us generally have, I'm actually going to say this, because the camera's right there, and it's kind of awkward from standing and cuts me off. I would say, great news, when we were grading exit tickets, like, over 95% of you had the right idea. So you made the correct inference and you answered both questions. What was lacking, well, I'm not going to say it was lacking because this is a guided discourse. I say I want you all to look at both of these answers up on the board. And I want you to tell me what you notice. What's the difference? Which one Which response is stronger, and how do you know? Anyone? Naima?
This one, because it's longer.
Ooh, okay. So length can sometimes give us a sense that there are more details, but tell me more, because length alone doesn't make a response stronger. Because I actually really like the way that this student answers a question. I think it's thoughtful. What's missing?
So they answered the same way, but this one has evidence.
Excellent. If we refer back to our criteria for success, they both clearly address all parts of the prompt, but this student does not include 2 pieces of evidence, and so there's really not even a way to connect the claim to the evidence. Okay? So when we start our exit ticket today, I want to remind you all to please pay attention to the criteria for success, and that whenever we are giving a response, we need to provide textual evidence to support our claim. Can someone repeat that back? What are we going to focus on with our exit ticket today?
Criteria for success.
And specifically, what part of the criteria of success did we struggle with last week?
Evidence.
Evidence. Excellent. Thank you, Naima. Great.
Scene.
All right, feedback for me. Thanks, Naima.
It was cool when you didn't just say to me, kid, like, nope, you were wrong. What am I looking for? So you acknowledge that their answer was correct, but not always an indicator if an exit ticket is good or not.
Excellent. Yeah, I responded to your feedback because you know you're going to have those students who say things that are a little off and not. That's the risk with guided discourse, right? That they could guide you somewhere you don't want to go. Right. But okay, you want to try?
Sure.
And you might want to choose other student work, or actually, since you have today's exit tickets, you might be able to find a more relevant example. But for today, if you want to go with Maya and Davon.
Alright. So instead of hearing me and Miss Medina lecture on and on about what an exemplar piece look, or taking a student unexpectedly and saying, now you teach the class, we decided to do something a little bit different. So we have these 2 exit tickets from last week up on the board, and I need your help. Which one, take a look at both of them, is stronger with answering the prompt? I'll give you guys a few seconds of wait time. Okay. Which exit ticket is stronger in answering the prompt? Okay.
I would say this one right here, example 1, because I think that she wrote a little bit more to describe why.
Describe why what?
Why was the wrong way, to describe the internal conflict. So she wrote more to describe it.
Okay, yes, definitely, that's it. One of the reasons why this is a stronger piece than this one is because she wrote more on why, and what reveals about the internal conflict. Great.
Awesome. So I'm going to cut you there. I think what we both made the mistake of when we did this, first of all, thank you for awkwardly standing up. I think what we needed to do first was actually root it in the criteria for success. I think if we had started, both of us, because I had to go back the same way you would have had to. We started with, let's quickly go through the criteria for success for the exit ticket so we know what we're looking for as we look for each of these. And I want you to maybe we ask students, I want you to tell me the stronger response based on the criteria for success, because that's going to help drive getting them to the evidence. Does that seem reasonable? Okay. Do you feel comfortable trying this on Wednesday, assuming your co-teacher's on board?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. So for my follow-up, what I would love, I won't be here on Wednesday, otherwise I'd come in and just observe and stalk you. But since I'm not going to be here, will you send me an email with how many kids included 2 pieces of evidence on the exit ticket on Wednesday?
Okay. So we don't go through the exit tickets right after they do it? We go straight into the writing lesson, so is it okay if we listen after?
Yeah, girl, don't send
So
it to
then they do
Miles.
so we then they do the reteach on Thursday.
Oh. What I was thinking is do this reteach before you go into the actual
Exit ticket.
the exit ticket lesson. So like 2 minutes. It didn't take either of us more than about 2 minutes to quickly just go through. Like, let's look at an exemplar versus a student who didn't quite meet the expectations. Cool.
Okay.
Alright, awesome. Cool.
Got it.
Yeah, the reteach before exit ticket and then exit ticket. But you should wait until whenever you actually grade them to send it to me. You don't have to like super speed on the spot grade them.